The name Arch Enemy alone elicits reactions from metalheads across the globe. This is a band that's in the 2000s really started to gain a lot of acclaim whenever virtual unknown Angela Gossow took over vocal duties for this group. And all of a sudden, a female growling and making all of the same, deep guttural noises as her male counterparts were now being seen and heard by a lot of people. And this was the first time that they had ever heard something like that. I could still remember the looks on people's faces whenever I would play Wages of Sin by Arch Enemy and let them know that it was a female that was rocking the vocals. Their face, this expressioned look of absolute surprise, almost made them a fan overnight. But wait a second! Arch Enemy was a band before Angela Gossow, and honestly, they're a band now without her, so what the hell? This is a band that, while they have definitely gained a lot of fans, especially during these past 15 years, have gotten a lot of detractors along the way, and in fact, had gotten some right as Wages of Sin was about to drop whenever they found out who the singer was that was going to be replacing Johan. So, without further ado, and let me just say, right before we get started, these are not views that I hold. This is not something that I feel about Arch Enemy. This is instead 5 reasons why some people have claimed to hate Arch Enemy. So let's scope it out and check it out with number 5, the Ozzfest effect. Now, Arch Enemy was a band that throughout the 2000s gained a lot of popularity and gained a lot of fans, as we previously mentioned. And this is potentially also because of the Ozzfest effect, or at least that's what most people feel. They feel that this is a group that's only got as big as they were because they were able to get on one of America's biggest heavy metal tours, if not the biggest tour in North America, to support heavy metal artists. Groups such as Cradle of Filth and some of the metalcore bands such as Killswitch Engage sometimes also fall under this category when people are describing why they don't like them. They don't like them simply because they are not Krieg enough, and Arch Enemy, of course, has made that list. Claimed that they are only as big as they were, or should I say are, based around the fact that they were able to get on this tour and pick up on all the teeny fans, all of the folks that were just getting into metal for the first time, or perhaps only going to impress whichever person they were trying to bang that evening. Either way, this is a reason why some people actually don't listen to music whenever they feel that the band has gotten either too big or has gotten, they're on the wrong tour. You saw this a lot with some of the Rockstar Energy stuff as well. But either way, let's move on. Number 4, because they kicked out Johan for Angela. This is where things get a little bit ugly, and this is where I'm honestly not very proud of some of my other metal fans. Now, on the first couple of albums, including one of my favorites, Burning Bridges, the original singer of this band was a gentleman by the name of Johan, who has gotten a lot of criticism for his own vocal style, feeling a little bit out of place for some of the riffs that were being dreamed up by Michael Lamont. But either way, Burning Bridges still serves as a terrific example to what Arch Enemy was able to do prior to Angela's arrival. Once Angela came, many were actually extremely dismissive of the fact that she was a woman that was handling death growls, and this is honestly kind of a shame. They had simply felt that there was absolutely no need for a woman to be in heavy metal doing such things, and this is honestly an opinion that to this day still is held by some individuals, that women have absolutely no place doing the same growls as their male counterparts, that they should be doing something different or something that suits them a little bit better. This sort of rampant sexism is kind of crazy that it happens in a genre that literally is trying to be accepting or claims to be accepting to just about anybody, whether it be freak, geek, or whatever else, but then turns around and does something of this variety. Fortunately enough, this happens to be just a simple minority whenever it comes to heavy metal fans, and most of us thought that Angela did a hell of a job as a vocalist and still continues as a creative consultant to the band to, help them out every now and again. Let's move on. This whole sexism thing makes me a little uncomfortable. Number 3, the female vocals, period. And this is, once again, not so much going with Angela herself or females in general, but the whole concept of female vocals. First of all, the fact that was already mentioned about the gender being something that should be used differently. These are vocals that should be handled a little bit differently. Is certainly one thing that was out there. But another thing that was out there was the fact that it wasn't original in the first place. many people were going around claiming that Angela was writing the book for female vocalists, when in reality, it had been done by a couple of different vocalists prior to that. And a great example is the band Kitty. This is definitely not something that was new. However, it was new for a lot of people, considering Arch Enemy was the metal band that was on the forefront and was the first one perhaps that they discovered that had a female that was doing these style of vocals. And this is what really caused a severe backlash by fans of bands such as Kitty, which felt like their band was being treated as though they were invisible, and of course, the aforementioned sexism, which I really don't want to talk about again. I hope the hell we can move on. Please. Number 2, the older stuff is better. Now, this is something that's held by more than just a minority of fans, and that's simply because the newer stuff is not getting the same amount of hype and love as perhaps Wages of Sin or even albums from before that or even slightly after. You know, the first couple of albums from the 2000s, whatever, you know, this whole thing's going in circles. Really, one of the main arguments is that some, if not all, of the first 4 albums were really Arch Enemy's best material. It was their sweet spot. And that the new stuff is just absolutely going the wrong direction. This is still a band that has maintained a melodic death metal sound that they always have really had ever since their foundation. However, it's a group that has now relied a little bit on some, you know, tropes that have caused that have really caused the sound to sour a little bit. And perhaps one of the very things that has caused the sound to sour as much as it seems is because melodic death metal itself doesn't really have that much motion to it anymore. It's the same sound that we've heard for about 25 to 30 years. It's a long time of listening to the same idea, and it's not one that has evolved all of that mightily, and whenever it has, it's immediately been sucked in to a different style of genre and exited out of the melodic death metal subgenre of metal. So really you could say that it's not even a subgenre of metal anymore, it's simply a sound. But either way, Arch Enemy has been a band that has been playing this sound since their foundation, and the opening albums are seen as really the pinnacle of their achievements, and the most recent have been seen as really not as good. Number 1, and the biggest reason why some people hate Arch Enemy, is because they consider them to be just generic melodic death metal. Returning to the melodic death metal concept, we have one of the biggest reasons why Arch Enemy gets a lot of distaste or hate from metal fans around the world. And that's the fact that they simply feel that this group is just a generic concept. Now, of course, whenever melodic death metal first came out with At the Gates, In Flames, Dark Tranquility, etc., it was seen as this very large and viable idea that, with some molding, was able to go even further and do even more for heavy music. However, as time has passed and it became done more and more to death by a lot of bands, even seeing its day in the sun in the early 2000s, where In Flames and Arch Enemy, for example, were able to push it forward and actually give it a little bit of street credibility to the point where, you know, bands of this variety were being sort of signed to death. It was very similar to thrash or, you know, even the metalcore idea. It seemed like there were melodic death metal bands popping up every single day, or at least every single week. This is something that just was done to death. And Arch Enemy was a sound that was becoming so commonplace and so regular that I honestly think that most people felt this way simply because they grew tired of what the band had to offer. And this is especially something that was seen with the release of their last album. It seems that even though they've added Alyssa, who was formerly a part of the Agonist, it's not really helped these individuals feel that the Arch Enemy has the opportunity to do more to their sound, to make themselves really unique and separate themselves from simply being just another melodic death metal band. And because of that, they simply can't get into the band, or there were those that weren't able to get into them from the very start because melodic death metal, or just because they felt that they were generic. Whatever the reason might be, that's the number 1 reason why folks simply could not get into the band. Their sound. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice that for once in however many episodes it's been, the number 1 reason why people haven't gotten into this band is because of the band's sound. It's because of what they sound like, not because of some ridiculous bullcrap that they did, or because of some stupid garbage that's over here on the side, or some conspiracy theory that space aliens put the damn band on the planet in order to brainwash. No, instead it's simply because of the band's sound, and simply because of an opinion, a personal feeling about the band. It's really nice, it's really comforting, and it's definitely a change here on the 5 Reasons series. But speaking of, did we forget any? Let me know in the comments below. And if there's a band that you think needs to be roasted, toasted, burnt to a crisp, buy a 5 Reasons series video, leave your suggestion in the comments as well. My name is CoverKillerNation, and I'll talk to you next time